When you say that existing institutions, if they're dominated by one or two countries, are not going to work as effectively, are you talking specifically about, say, the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, the WTO? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I think to be fair, all these institutions are making their best efforts to reform and to improve, to catch up with the tremendous changes going on in the world. For instance, since the financial crisis in 2008, the World Bank, IMF, have had major reforms about their quota system, about how they respond to their member states' needs. I think that they are making good efforts. Even at the recent G20 summit, these institutions are offering their contribution. They are ready to play their due role. Of course, we have to encourage them to do more.
I guess what I'm asking is, as we look ahead 3 years, 5 years' time, and as you're saying that some of these institutions that have been dominated by one or two countries are not going to be adequate for the task, which is a pretty direct statement, do you think that these institutions, reformed, will become adequate, or do you think it's more likely that we need new architecture, some of which will come from China, some of which will come from other places? What's the direction that you think we're more likely heading of those two?
Well, honestly, I think if all these institutions, if these existing institutions can respond to the needs and aspirations of its member states. When I say member states, it's not just a few of them, but the entire membership. If these institutions can respond in a timely and effective manner, then they can have good reforms. They could make themselves better able to perform their function. If they fail to do that, that might force the member countries to think about the possibility of setting up new structures. But I do hope that we can carry out reform with the existing institutions, just make them better.
Do you think, obviously we see coming out of this crisis, China's economy is rebounding the fastest. China's critical for the distribution of medical supplies and personnel. Do you see China playing a fundamentally different role on the global stage? Do you see China emerging as a global leader in a way that it hasn't before on the back of this crisis? And if you do, is that an intentional strategy? Do you see this as more of a reactive response, or do you see this as the desire of the Chinese government to say this is the moment when China should lead?
Well, if we could have our own preference, we certainly don't want to see this moment, because this is a huge crisis for all of us. China cannot be safe from the virus if all the other countries are still struggling. So we are helping others, that's true. But in a sense, we are also helping ourselves by helping others. And I don't think our aim is to be the so-called the leader of the world, because we never believe that there should be a leader for the world. We believe in equality of all the countries.